What if I told you that the very thing you crave is the very thing that's quietly destroying you, not in grand explosions, but in small, invisible surrenders? Lust doesn't come with chains, it comes with invitations. It knocks softly, dresses itself in pleasure, and convinces you that you are in control. But if you're addicted to lust, then you're not a man, you're a puppet, and someone else is pulling the strings. You think you're chasing pleasure, but in truth, you're trading your power for a fleeting sensation. You let images, fantasies, and urges dictate your behavior. You click, you swipe, you surrender. And every time you give in, you lose a piece of your command, a slice of your will, a fraction of your soul. You've become a slave to dopamine, a prisoner to desire. The world is watching, laughing quietly, because it knows that the man who cannot say no to his impulses will never say yes to greatness. Lust was never meant to lead. It was meant to be led. But you've allowed it to sit on the throne of your mind, whispering lies dressed as truth. It tells you that this moment of indulgence is harmless. It convinces you that discipline is outdated, that self-denial is weakness. But let me be clear, the man who indulges in everything weakens himself for everything. Lust doesn't just consume your time, it consumes your authority. It makes you predictable, easily influenced, easily controlled. Because here's the brutal truth. If you cannot control your appetite, someone else will feed it for you. The world has figured this out. They don't need to conquer you with force anymore. They conquer you with your own cravings. They feed your lust through screens, through algorithms, through constant access. And the more you consume, the weaker you become. You're not just addicted to lust, you're addicted to losing. They are farming your energy, harvesting your attention, and selling your masculinity back to you in broken fragments. A man addicted to lust cannot build an empire, he cannot lead others, he cannot even lead himself, because leadership requires clarity. It demands presence, but lust muddies the waters of the mind. It fragments focus, shatters inner strength, and whispers doubt into every noble pursuit. You cannot be great if you're constantly chasing pleasure. You cannot rise if you keep bowing to your lower nature. You cannot dominate the world if you cannot dominate yourself. This is not a moral lecture. This is a strategic warning. You think lust is harmless, but it is the oldest tactic of control. Strip a man of his sexual discipline, and you strip him of his sharpness, his certainty, his sovereignty. You soften his ambition, you cloud his vision, you reduce him to an animal easily baited and never feared. And once you're no longer feared, you're no longer respected. And once you're no longer respected, you are used. By lovers, by leaders, by systems that know exactly how to keep you docile. If you want to escape this trap, you don't need more information. You need inner war. You need to turn your cravings into your battlefield and your self-mastery into your weapon. Start seeing lust not as pleasure, but as poison. Not as satisfaction, but as sabotage. Every time you resist, you build a layer of armor. Every time you say no, you sharpen your edge. And over time, you transform from the one who is easily led into the one who cannot be moved. And when that shift happens, when you reclaim the throne of your inner world, everything changes. Your eyes see clearer. Your words carry weight. Your presence becomes rare. Women notice. Men respect. The world responds differently to a man who radiates restraint. Because they know this one cannot be bought, this one cannot be baited, this one has burned the leash they tried to wrap around his neck. The man who kills his lust becomes terrifying, not because he is dangerous to others, but because he is no longer dangerous to himself. He walks into rooms with a calm that unnerves the chaotic. He speaks less, listens more, and acts with precision. He is not looking for validation, not chasing skirts, not drowning in indulgence. He is building himself, his empire, his legacy. And in a world addicted to instant gratification, that kind of man becomes immortal. But this transformation is not a one-time act. It is a daily confrontation with your own weakness. It is the quiet choice to suffer today so you may rule tomorrow. It is refusing the easy high for the hard-earned glory. Most men won't make that choice. They'll keep falling, keep numbing, keep pretending they are free while being devoured by their own hunger. But a few, just a few will rise. They will look at lust and say, "You don't own me anymore." They will take back their mornings, their minds, their manhood. They will move through the world untouched by temptation, unbothered by distraction, unshaken by beauty, because they have seen through the game. They have realized that lust is a weapon disguised as a reward, and they've chosen to become the kind of man who can no longer be seduced by illusion. That kind of man is dangerous, not because he hurts others, but because he cannot be used. Not by women, not by media, not by systems. He becomes what the world secretly fears, the man who desires nothing and therefore controls everything. Lust is not love, it is enslavement masquerading as freedom. This deception is subtle, almost beautiful in its illusion. It seduces by presenting itself as liberation, as the raw expression of human desire. You are told to embrace it, explore it, chase it without shame, because that is what freedom looks like, right? But this is the first trap, because what masquerades as your personal liberty is in fact your deepest chain. Lust doesn't want you to recognize it as a prison. It wants you to believe it is your choice, your empowerment, your indulgent right. And by the time you realize the bars around you, you're too deep inside to remember what real freedom even felt like. You think you're chasing your own pleasure, but in reality, you're walking into a cage that you helped build, brick by brick, each time you gave in. And every time you act on impulse, it tightens its grip until your desires no longer serve you. They rule you. The confusion begins with language. Society has blurred the line between lust and love, mixing poison with nourishment. Lust is not connection, it is consumption. Where love seeks to give, lust only seeks to take. Love elevates both souls involved, while lust burns through them like fire through paper, quick, aggressive, and empty when it's done. You may feel alive in the moment, but what follows is never growth, only craving. Lust creates the illusion of intimacy, but what you actually experience is the hollowness of mechanical pleasure. It strips away meaning and replaces it with repetition. It keeps you in a cycle where your sense of self-worth becomes tied to external validation, how you look, how you're perceived, how much attention you can command, and that kind of dependence is the antithesis of strength. You may appear powerful on the outside, but inside, you are owned by your own addiction. The tragedy of lust is that it presents itself as a reward. It tells you that you've earned this, that a man who works hard deserves to indulge, that you are entitled to pleasure because you are strong. But in that very narrative lies the trap. It turns your strength against you. The more you chase it, the more it escapes. The more you feed it, the more it starves you. Lust doesn't fulfill, it intensifies hunger. It's a fire that spreads every time you try to satisfy it. What once was a simple fantasy becomes a compulsion. What once was innocent curiosity becomes dependence. And over time, you find yourself needing more stimulation, more attention, more novelty, just to feel the same thrill. That is not freedom. That is the architecture of psychological slavery. And this slavery is not limited to your mind. It bleeds into every other aspect of your life. Your energy, your focus, your motivation, they're all drained by the constant pursuit of pleasure. Time that could have been spent building, learning, creating, growing, is instead wasted in silent surrender to impulse. The man who is addicted to lust lives in a fog. He wakes up groggy, distracted, fragmented. His edge dulls, his ambition dims, his purpose becomes secondary to his urges, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, he becomes a shadow of what he could have been. Lust, while pretending to empower, has secretly dismantled his potential. What's more insidious is how society encourages this descent. Platforms, media, culture, they all reward hypersexuality. They glorify lust, monetize it, and normalize it. They don't just permit your descent into enslavement. They design it. You are surrounded by triggers, by signals that speak to your biology, that hijack your reward system and condition you to crave without questioning. You are being programmed to believe that indulgence is identity, that to deny lust is to deny your humanity. But this is the final deception, because it's only in resisting lust that you reclaim your humanity. When you resist, you return to reason, you gain perspective, you restore your dignity. Lust dehumanizes you by reducing you to an animal, chasing, panting, acting without pause, but when you say no, even silently, you become sovereign again. The man who sees through this illusion understands that lust is not freedom. It is a disguised enslavement that presents itself as pleasure, and the longer you chase it blindly, the more you lose, not just your time, not just your focus, but your inner authority. You become someone who no longer acts by will but reacts by programming, someone whose choices are no longer their own. That is the cost of mistaking lust for love. It isn't just your heart you lose, it's your throne. Those who cannot control their desires will be controlled by others through them. This is not philosophy. It is psychological warfare in plain sight. The man who lacks discipline believes he is acting out of free will, but in truth, his strings are being pulled by those who understand his cravings better than he does. Lust is a leash, and those who manufacture it, distribute it, and amplify it are not offering pleasure. They are offering control. If your desires are stronger than your self-command, then you are not living. You are being managed. And the people managing you don't need to threaten you. They just need to tempt you. They don't need to chain you. They only need to seduce you. The genius of modern control is that it rarely looks like tyranny. It looks like indulgence, it feels like entertainment, and it tastes like liberation. But beneath that sweetness lies quiet domination. When you are led by your desires, you are no longer the strategist. You are the pawn. You can be easily predicted, easily baited, easily bought. The world sees this and exploits it relentlessly. Every advertisement, every platform, every algorithm is designed to keep your attention fixated on what inflames you. And nothing inflames like lust. It is primal, urgent, and blind. The system doesn't care about your dignity. It only cares about how long it can keep you clicking, swiping, craving. You become data, not a man. You become reactive, not reflective. They track your weakness and feed it back to you in infinite forms until your own mind becomes the prison they profit from. And you won't even resist it. You'll call it freedom. That is the brilliance of the trap. Control is no longer imposed with violence. It is given freely through seduction. The man who cannot say no becomes the easiest to lead. You don't have to break him. You just have to entice him. You just have to present him with the illusion of choice, and he'll surrender willingly. The man ruled by lust will sacrifice discipline for pleasure, delay for instant gratification, and legacy for release. He'll rationalize his downfall, defend his distractions, and call his chains a lifestyle. This is not just weakness, it is engineered defeat. Because the more he gives in, the less capable he becomes of delayed gratification, the less he trusts his own judgment, and the more dependent he becomes on external stimulation to feel alive. Look closely at history, at power, at conquest. Empires weren't just toppled by swords, they were softened first by indulgence. Leaders who once ruled with clarity became clouded by excess. Discipline turned to decadence. Focus turned to fantasy. When you study the fall of men, you don't just see blood and betrayal, you see seduction. You see comfort that numbed the edge. You see lust that eroded restraint. You see men who once could not be moved slowly become manipulable by their own cravings. If you want to destroy a man, you don't attack him directly. You amplify his desires. That's what they've done to you. They've handed you your own appetite and told you to feast. But you didn't notice that the meal was laced with dependence. You are never more vulnerable than when you are ruled by what you want most. Because the person who knows what you crave owns the map to your soul. If it's sex, they will lure you. If it's validation, they will flatter you. If it's novelty, they will overwhelm you with endless options. And in each case, you believe you're choosing, but in truth, you're following. You're following scripts written by those who understand human weakness, weaponize attention, and manipulate behavior on a mass scale. You may be alive, but your autonomy is gone. You've been hacked, not through code, but through your own inability to master desire. This is why self-control is no longer just a virtue. It is a weapon of resistance. It is how you reclaim your life from those who quietly orchestrate your downfall through your lust. Every time you delay gratification, you break a link in their chain. Every time you reject temptation, you cut off a stream of influence. Every time you say no to the easy pleasure, you say yes to your power. You are no longer predictable, you are no longer profitable, you are no longer programmable, and that is what they fear the most, not the man who screams in anger, but the man who smiles in silence and resists. Because that man cannot be moved by lust, and if he cannot be moved by lust, he cannot be moved at all. True power comes from mastering your impulses, not indulging them. The world may celebrate the man who lives without limits, who boasts of his conquests, who parades his indulgences as signs of strength. But that is not power, that is a performance. A man driven by impulse is not in control of his destiny. He is a passenger in his own life, steered by the moment, hijacked by every urge, and reactive to every temptation. Real power does not come from doing whatever you want. It comes from having the strength to not do what weakens you. The man who can feel desire but remain unmoved by it is the one who holds the reins to his life. He is not denying himself because he is afraid of pleasure. He is denying himself because he recognizes that pleasure, when ungoverned, turns men into addicts, not kings. Mastery is not the absence of desire. It is the refusal to be dominated by it. It is looking temptation in the eye and saying, I see you, I feel you, but I do not obey you. That kind of restraint is not weakness. It is the essence of power. Because it means you are not governed by emotion, by biology, or by external influence. You are ruled by purpose. The undisciplined man, however loud or confident he may appear, is at war with himself. He must constantly chase new highs, new experiences, new stimulation to maintain the illusion of power. But the man of mastery doesn't chase, he commands. His life is built on intention, not impulse. He decides when to act, when to hold back, when to speak, and when to remain silent. He is not pulled by moods or urges. He is anchored by principle. The man who indulges every lust believes he is experiencing freedom, but he is trapped in a cycle of diminishing returns. He needs more and more of what satisfies him less and less. And as his hunger grows, his control shrinks. That's because indulgence weakens the very muscle that power depends on, willpower. Willpower is not something you wake up with. It's something you forge in the fires of self, denial, through the small, repeated victories over what tries to own you. Every time you resist, you become stronger. Every time you surrender, you become smaller. The discipline of self-restraint isn't about becoming robotic. It's about becoming unshakable. When you can move through the world without reacting to every impulse, you rise above the chaos that swallows lesser men. The modern world is designed to keep you weak. It floods you with triggers, distracts you with pleasure, and praises instant gratification. It teaches you to value stimulation over stillness, consumption over creation, ease over effort. And in that environment, the man who masters his impulses becomes a rare force. He is not popular, but he is powerful. He is not seen everywhere, but when he arrives, the room shifts. His energy is different because he is not leaking it through addictions, distractions, or obsessions. He stores it, builds it, directs it. And when it is needed, he unleashes it with purpose, not recklessness. That is what makes him formidable, not his size, not his status, but his restraint. There is nothing more terrifying to the world than a man who cannot be seduced. Because that man cannot be predicted, manipulated, or coerced. He is not swayed by flattery or provocation. He is not disarmed by beauty or baited by lust. He sees through the game and refuses to play it. He is not numb, he is sharp. He is not cold, he is controlled, and in that control lies his supremacy. While others burn out chasing every desire, he moves in silence, builds in private, and strikes with precision. That is the difference between a man who lives by impulse and one who lives by intent. One is constantly pulled, the other calmly chooses. To master your impulses is to reclaim your identity. It is to rise above the biological urges that govern most men and step into the realm of those who live by code. It is to stop reacting and start ruling. Every time you delay gratification, you expand your power. Every time you conquer an impulse, you reinforce your throne. You become more than just a man, you become a force. Not one who is feared for his temper, but respected for his composure. not one who is loud with desire, but quiet with dominance. Because the man who rules himself does not need to shout. He simply becomes undeniable.